Welcome back to Arbitress YouTube channel. In today's class we'll be learning how to make this beautiful tier dress. It's a 3-layer flare dress and it's really beautiful and simple to make. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned till the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so I have my basic bodies up to this point. This is my armhole line, my bust point, my under bust and my waistline, and then I've got my head to draw out my armhole curve. So I initially wanted to draw these basic bodies, but I just thought to show us. So there's a detailed video on how to draw the basic bodies if you don't know how to. So from these basic bodies I'm trying to get a tube blouse. Okay, so it's like an armless blouse. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to note my neckline. If you notice, I just have my armhole. I've not drawn my circumference measurement yet because I'm still going to take my bustier. That is a bustier. So from the starting point here, I want to indicate how low I want my neckline to be, and usually for off shoulder I use 6 inches. So I have 6 inches there, and then I'm going to make it into a straight line. Okay, so now you can make your neckline straight like this, but I want it a bit curved, just like a sweetheart neckline a bit. So here I'm going to go down by 1/4 of an inch. You can do whatever neckline you want, and then using my curve I'm going to connect it. So before I do that, I want to input my bust span measurement. That's your nipple to nipple. So for me, I'm working with 8 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 4. So from my center front I'll mark 4 inches, and then I'm going to connect it upwards up to my neckline. Okay, so now I'm going to connect my neckline to that bust span measurement that I have there. Okay, and then I'm going to blend this. Remember I said it's a tube top, so from there also I'm going to blend it to my armhole. Okay, so from here now I'm blending this to my armhole, so you can see the neckline that I have like this. So the next thing is for me to take my dart. On my under bust I'm going to be taking a dart of 1 inch on both sides. I'll do the same thing on the waistline, and then I'll connect it. On my bust point I'll go down by 1/2 inch, and then I'll connect from the 1/2 inch all the way to my under bust using my curved ruler on both sides. Okay, so to tighten my chest line I'll be taking a dart of 1/4 of an inch on both sides also. Okay, you can actually share this. You can take like less darts on the parts where you have your center front, and then more darts on your side, or you just take the same dart on both sides. It's all up to you. So here also I'll go by 1/2 inch, and then I'll connect this to my dart leg. Okay, so I have this, and all of this is my dart. So the next thing is for me to start taking my circumference measurement. So I'm going to start with my bust. The bust I'm working with is 9 inches. So on my armhole line I'm going to measure what I have. I have 3 3/4. So 36 divided by 4 is 9, so I have 9 inches. So this is 9 I have earlier, but because of the dart, so I have it here now. On my waistline, the waist I'm working with is 28 inches divided by 4 is going to give me 7. So I have 3 inches. I'll just continue it, and then I'll have 7 inches like that. So I'm adding a seam allowance of 1.5 inches to this, and then I'll connect it. Okay, so my front is almost done now. So I'll move straight to the back. So drafting the back is quite easy also. So for the back, I have my zipper allowance, and then I want my neckline to stop at my armhole line. So this is the armhole line, so I'm not going to bother with all of this. Okay, so the next thing you want to do now is to mark out your bust span measurement to get your dart. And just like I did for the first one, I'm working with 4 inches. Okay, and then I'll make that into a straight line. And on the each of the dart leg, I'm taking a dart of 1/2 inch, and I'll connect it to my chest line. So on my chest line, I'll measure 9 inch for my bust, and then on the waistline, I'm measuring 7 inches, 3 inches here, and then I'll complete my 7 inches. Then I'll add 1.5 inches dart allowance, same allowance also. So I'm going to cut this out. So this is my front and this is my back. Okay, so this is what I have. So if you notice the dart that I took there, I did not replace it. This is because this is a tube top and you want the upper bust area to be as firm as possible. So you may need to take the measurement of your upper bust. That's where this is going to rest. You take the round measurement and make sure you work with that when you're sewing it, because you don't want this to be too big so that it's not going to be falling off. Because remember that it's a tube and it does not have any sleeve holding it, so that is very important. So now I'm going to cut out my dart, and then I'll go ahead and cut this on my fabric. Okay, so I'm working with this fabric, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut out my patterns on this fabric. So I've cut this on my fabric. For the center front, I cut 2 because I'm using the same fabric as my lining, and then I cut this part on fold, and then for the side I cut 4 of it because they are not on fold, and then for the back also I cut 4 of it because they are not on fold. So I'm just going to notch where I have my dart, and then I'll go ahead to sew this. Okay, so to sew for the back, I'm going to sew the dart, and then for the front I'm going to join it on the dart area here. Then after that I'm going to sew it together on the side, and then I'll bring it back for us to continue. So I've gone ahead to sew this, and this is my main fabric and this is my lining. Okay, so what I did was to sew in my dart for the front and the back, and then I went ahead to place them side by side, and then I joined my side seam on both sides. So now we start to cut our flare. Remember, it has 3 layers of flare. So the first one is going to be on this neckline area. So to get the circumference of this place to get your radius for the flare, I'm going to take my tape rule now and measure from the back. I'm going to measure all of the neckline. Okay, you can see how I'm measuring it, and then back to the back here, and then I have 36 inches as the total measurement for the neckline. Okay, so now it depends on how full you want your flare to be. You can cut a 360-degree flare or 720-degree flare or 144, depending on what you want. So I have a full tutorial on how to cut different types of flare. But for this, I'm going to be working with a 720-degree flare. That's 360 flare in total. That's the 360-degree flare is your full flare. So I'm cutting 2 of that to make 1. So to do this, the 36 inches that I measured here, I'll first divide that by 2 to cut each of my flare. So 36 divided by 2 is going to give me 18 inches, which means the circumference of each of my flare is going to be 18 inches. Then I'm going to join it together to form one single flare. I hope that makes sense. So the 18 inches, because it's a full flare, I'm going to divide 18 inches divided by 6.28. 6.28 is a constant. and what I get there is going to be the radius of my flare. 18 divided by 6.28 is giving me around 2.9. I'm going to approximate that to 3 inches, so that's going to be my radius, and then the length of the flare is going to be the length of my blouse. So I'm going to measure what I have here, and here I have around 11 inches because I'm still going to sew this. So I'm going to cut 2 flares of 3 inches radius and then 11 inches length. So because it's 720 degrees, remember we divided our 36 into 2. So I'm going to fold my fabric into 4. Okay, so I'm going to first fold my fabric into 2 like this. You can see that I'm folding this into 2, and then I'm going to fold it into 4 again. So that's how you fold your fabric. And then on this folded point, this angle here, you're going to take the measurement of your radius. So in this case, I'm working with a radius of 3 inches, which I got by dividing my circumference by 6.28. So here I'm going to measure 3 inches round, and then the length I'm working with is 11 inches. So from my radius here, I'll measure 11 inches. I'm just trying to arrange my fabric well, and then from here I'll measure 11 inches round. So that's how you cut each of the flare. So I'll cut 2 of these, and then I'm going to join them together. So I'm not going to have any shortage if I join. Remember, my actual radius was around 2.9, which I approximated to 3 inches. So I'll have enough allowance to join my flares together. So I'm connecting this now, and then I'll connect them together. After connecting it, I'm going to cut this out, and then I'll use this flare to cut the other one. I'll also cut the radius. So this is my first flare. I'm going to use this to cut the other one. So I've cut out the other flare now. I have 2 of these. I'm just going to open it on one end here, and then open the second one also, so that I can join them together to form my full flare. Okay, so I'm going to join 2 of these together. So now this 720 degrees is going to give me a fuller flare. So if I'm going to be using, if you want to use just one, what you just need to do is to measure the circumference. That's where you're placing it, and just divide it by 6.28. But if you're working with 720 degree flare like me, you need to divide that measurement by 2 before you divide by 6.28, so that you cut 2 flares like this, and then you join it together. So the same method applies for the other 2 flares. So in this case, the radius is going to be the waist, because we're going to be placing it on the waistline. So here I'm going to measure what I have on my waistline, and then here I have 30 inches. So same way, I'm going to divide the 30 inches by 2, and then I'll have 15 inches. Then I'll divide 15 inches by 6.28 to get each of my radius. And then the length of the flare is going to be my actual length minus what I have here. So my half length is 16 inches, and then the actual length I'm working with is 38 inches. That's the full length. So 38 minus 16 is going to give me 22 inches. So the longest flare is going to be 22 inches long, and then the shortest flare, the short one that is going to be on it, I'm just going to deduct like 10 inches from the 22, or 9 inches. So if I'm deducting 9 inches, I'm going to have 13, and if I'm deducting 10 inches, I'm going to have 12 inches. So I'll just make the short flare 12 inches, and then the long flare is going to be 22 inches with the radius that I just measured. So I'm going to cut this now, and then bring it back to show us. Okay, so this is the shorter flare. The radius is 2.5 inches, and then the length is 13 inches. Remember, the length I want is 12 inches, then I added 1 inch allowance for sewing, which makes it 13 inches. So I have 2 of these, And just like I did for the first one, I'm going to open it up on each side, and then I'll go ahead and join them together. Likewise, I did the same for the longest flare. So I have it here. The radius is also 2.5 inches, and then the length is 22 inches. So I have two of these also, and then I've got it, and then I'm going to join it together. So I want to join them together first so that I don't misplace them. Then I'm going to bring it back to show us how we're going to sew it. Okay, so I'm going ahead to join it together, but I joined it on both ends. Okay, I joined it on both opened ends. This is because you can see I have a seam line here and also here. So I joined it on both ends to form one single flare, because I don't want to have seams at my center front. I don't want to have joining at my center front. So these two ends is going to be my side. Then I'm going to open another one, just one, to form my new center back. So I'll just pick one of the flare, fold it into two now, and then I'm going to open it at the midpoint. So this is going to be my center back. So by the time I sew it now, these two joining that I have is going to fall on my side. I don't want to have joining. So if you don't mind having joining at your center front, you can just leave it as it is. So now this is the one for the upper part, which is the neckline. So now I'm just going to take it now. You can see this is my neckline, the right side of my neckline, and the right side of my flare. So I'll take it now and then go ahead and sew it. So I'm going to sew it like this. You can see my joining is going to fall on my side here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and join this to the center front, then bring it back to show us the next thing to do. Okay, so I've gone ahead to join it. This is my bustier underneath it, as you can see. Then I went ahead to join my flare on the upper part. So to neatly conceal this flare now, I'm going to bring in my lining. Okay, the lining for the bustier, and then I'm going to place it right side facing right side. Okay, so this is my actual fabric, my bodies. Then I have my flare on top of my bodies like this, sewn on the neckline. And then to neatly conceal it, I'm going to take my lining and then place it on it like this and match all the important points together. So this is my side seam. I'll match it and pin it. This is my first dart. I'll match it up also and pin. This is my second dart. Excuse me. I'll pin also. Then I'll match the side seam for the other side. So just match your important points, pin, and then I'll go straight to my center back. Okay, and then I'll pin it. So I'll pin the center back of the other side also. So they just have to match. Once you use them to cut each other, then I'll go ahead and sew it. So since I already have a seam line here, I can just follow it like that. So I'm going to sew it, and then on the center back I'll take everything together also and then sew everything close so that I can neatly conceal all these rough edges that I have. So I'm going to sew from my zipper area here all the way to my neckline, and then back to the zipper area for the other side. So to conceal the hem of your flare, so you can just take it to a serger and then serge it, or you use your bias to neatly turn it, or if you can just hem it by folding it, by doing your rolled hem, you can just fold it. Just make sure that it is neat. Okay, so I'm going ahead to sew it round, and then I also sew it on the zipper area. So I have excess flare around here, so I'm just going to trim it off to blend with what I have in my front area. Okay, so you have excess here because the length of the front is a bit higher than what we have at the back, and if you want it going down like this, you can leave it, but I'm just going to trim it to run with the length that I have in the back also. So this is the excess that I have on the other side. So you just need to notch this, and by the time you turn this out, you're going to see that your bodice is neatly finished. Okay, so when I turn it out, this is what I have. Okay, so this is my bodice. This is my bodice here, and then my flare is just going to rest on the bodice like this, and this is the lining. So you can see that the lining is also neatly finished. So now the next thing is for us to fix the lower part. So to fix the lower part, just like I did for the first flare, I sew it on both sides like this, and then I'm going to fold it and then open up one of the flare. Okay, so this place that I'm opening up is going to serve as my center back, CB. I'm doing this because I don't want to have any seam line as my center front, so all these joinings that I have is going to fall on the side. So I'm starting with the shorter one. So this short one, now remember, this is my main bodice, this is the flare, and this is the right side of the main body. This is the main fabric. So now this is the short flare here. So this is it, right side facing right side. I'm just going to flip this over now and then sew it on the waistline, just the short one. Okay, just the short flare. I'm sewing the short flare first, so I'll sew it on the waistline like this, and then I'll bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew in my first flare, which is the short flare, and this is what I have. So this is it on the wrong side. Okay, so the flare is sewn now. The next thing now is to sew in the third and final flare. So now to sew it, I'm going to try to use it and turn this waistline neatly, because I don't want to be seeing this rough edge. So to do this, on this side that I have this rough edge, you can see I've turned to the wrong side of my fabric. You can see the waistline is still rough. So I'm just going to lay this biggest one. So you can see this is the wrong side, this is the shiny part, which is the right side. So now I'm placing the wrong side on it like this, and then I'm going to sew it. So when I sew it, by the time I flip it over like this, the right side is going to be showing. You can see it is laying on each other. The right side is going to be showing outside, and then it must have covered this rough edge that I have here for me. So what you just need to do now is turn to the wrong side of your fabric. This is my lining part. You can see these frills, rough edges that I have, and then you're going to sew it. So I'll take it to the sewing machine now, and then I'll sew. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew this. You can still serge this if you want, but this is what it looks like. So by the time I flip it over, you can see what the inside of my dress is looking like. It's really neat. This is the upper part, and this is the flare part. So you can see how clean the waistline is. So now the last thing to do now is to take this, so the big and long one, or the center back area, I'm going to flip it against each other like this, and then I'll sew it down so that I can conceal this rough edge also, so that I'll have something like this on my center back. I want the center back to be also clean, like what I have on the half length. So I'll just take the big one and the small one, and then flip it like this, and I will sew it so that by the time I turn it out, it's also going to be neatly finished before I fix my zipper. Okay, so I've flipped it now, and then I've sewn it. So you can see how the CB center back is looking. Everything is neatly finished now. So you just need to serge or use a bias to turn your sleeve, your flare hem, or the hem of the flare. You're going to turn it with the bias. So this is what I have. This is the wrong side. You can see how clean it is on the wrong side, and this is the right side. These are my 3 flares. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the last and the longest flare. So now the next thing is for me to close it, place my center back against each other, and then I'll close this up to around 6 inches. Around 6 inches above the waistline, so that I can wear it easily. So I'll close it here, and then I'm going to fix my zipper on this upper part, and I'll take it to the mannequin so that we can see what this is looking like. So you can see how clean it is on the inside. So this is the wrong side, and this part where we have our flares is the right side of the fabric. Okay, so this is what our dress is looking like. You can see this is the first layer, this is the second layer, and that is the last layer. So it's a very simple tutorial and it's really beautiful. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed this, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.